Han Wu stood at the observation deck of the transport ship and watched Nexus Station grow larger in the viewport. The massive structure floated in space like a metal city with thousands of lights blinking across its surface. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at the station's many ports. Some looked like metal insects, while others appeared as glowing spheres or twisted spirals. The variety never failed to amaze him even after all these years of diplomatic service. The station served as neutral ground for the Galactic Council. Here, representatives from hundreds of worlds came to trade and negotiate. For humanity, it represented both opportunity and challenge. Earth had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago, and most alien races still saw humans as newcomers who had little to offer except raw materials and cheap labor. Kim Nari approached from behind carrying a datapad. She had served as his aide for 3 years, and Han Wu trusted her judgment completely. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style that matched her professional appearance. She moved with quiet efficiency that reminded him of his old military days. "Ambassador, the docking procedures are complete," she said in Korean before switching to Standard Galactic. "The Council has assigned us quarters in Section C7. Security Chief Park Jun-ho is already aboard checking our accommodations." Han Wu nodded and straightened his formal diplomatic robes. The dark blue fabric had been specially made on Earth with subtle patterns that honored both human and galactic traditions. To most observers, he appeared as nothing more than a middle-aged diplomat with graying hair and calm demeanor. They could not see the scars hidden beneath his clothes or the way his eyes constantly scanned for potential threats. The transport docked with a soft thud that vibrated through the deck. Han Wu gathered his ceremonial items and walked toward the airlock. As the doors opened, a wave of different scents hit him. The station recycled air from dozens of different atmospheric preferences, creating a unique smell that was part ozone and part something he could never quite identify. Park Jun-ho waited just inside the station. The security attaché was younger than Han Wu, but carried himself with military bearing. His hand rested casually near his diplomatic sidearm, though he appeared relaxed to casual observers. When he saw Han Wu, he bowed slightly in the traditional Korean manner. "Sir, the quarters are adequate, but I have concerns about the security arrangements," Park Jun-ho said quietly. "Our section is isolated from the main diplomatic areas, and the surveillance coverage has several blind spots." Han Wu considered this information. In his experience, when aliens made such arrangements, they were either trying to insult their guests or preparing for something unpleasant. "Has the Council provided any explanation for these accommodations?" "They claim it is for our privacy and comfort," Kim Nari replied. "However, I have noticed that other minor species have been placed in similar isolated sections." The 3 humans walked through the station corridors toward their assigned area. The passages were wide enough to accommodate beings much larger than humans. The walls displayed constantly changing advertisements in dozens of languages, and the floors were made of some material that felt soft under their feet. Other beings moved past them with barely a glance. A group of tall insectoid creatures chittered to each other in high-pitched voices, while a cluster of energy beings flickered like living lightning as they floated by. Han Wu had studied files on all the major council races during the journey. The Velthak were the insectoid beings who considered themselves the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Their technology was impressive, but they viewed other species as either useful tools or annoying obstacles. The Morvani were energy-based life forms who claimed to have transcended physical limitations. They spoke in riddles and seemed to enjoy manipulating other races for their own amusement. The Kreks were large reptilian warriors who solved most problems through violence or the threat of violence. These 3 races formed the core of the Council leadership along with several smaller allied species. They had controlled galactic politics for over 1,000 years and did not welcome changes to their established order. Humanity represented exactly the kind of change they feared most. Their quarters turned out to be functional but Spartan. 3 small rooms connected to a central meeting area with basic furniture and standard station amenities. Park Jun-ho immediately began checking for surveillance devices while Kim Nari started organizing their diplomatic materials. Han Wu sat in the single chair and reviewed his notes one final time. The negotiations would begin tomorrow with a formal presentation ceremony. Earth wanted better trade agreements and access to advanced technologies that could help human colonies develop faster. In exchange, they offered expanded mining rights and increased shipments of rare minerals that were common in human space, but scarce elsewhere. On paper, the deal seemed fair to both sides. Human industrial capacity had impressed even the skeptical. Council members and Earth's military had proven surprisingly effective in several border conflicts with pirate fleets. But Han Wu knew the aliens would try to extract maximum advantage while giving humans as little as possible in return. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Park Jun-ho checked the door scanner and frowned. "Velthak delegation, sir. 3 individuals, including what appears to be a high-ranking official." Han Wu stood and smoothed his robes. "Let them enter." The Velthak who entered were impressive even by alien standards. They stood nearly 3 meters tall with segmented bodies covered in gleaming chitinous armor. Their heads were elongated, with multifaceted eyes that could track multiple targets simultaneously. The leader wore decorative metal bands that indicated high rank within their hierarchy. "I am Subcommander Zekhal of the Velthak Diplomatic Corps," the alien said in heavily accented Standard Galactic. "I bring greetings from the Council and instructions for tomorrow's proceedings." Han Wu bowed politely. "I am Ambassador Han Wu, representing Earth and the human colonies. We are honored by your visit." The Velthak's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Tomorrow, you will present your species' petition to the full Council. You will have exactly 10 minutes to state your case before questions begin. Council members may interrupt at any time if they require clarification. Do you understand these terms?" 10 minutes seems rather brief for such important negotiations, Han Wu replied carefully. "Perhaps we could request additional time." "The Council's schedule is already quite full accommodating your presence," Zekhal said with clear dismissal in his tone. "Many members question whether humanity has anything useful to contribute to galactic civilization. You should be grateful for any time allocated to your primitive concerns." Kim Nari's hand tightened on her datapad, but she remained silent. Park Jun-ho shifted slightly closer to Han Wu, though he made no aggressive moves. Han Wu himself showed no reaction to the insult beyond a slight tightening around his eyes. "We appreciate the Council's consideration," he said with perfect diplomatic neutrality. "We will make good use of whatever time is provided." The Velthak delegation left without further ceremony. Once the door sealed, Kim Nari turned to Han Wu with barely controlled anger. "Sir, that was completely inappropriate. They're treating us like beggars asking for scraps." "That appears to be exactly how they view humanity," Han Wu replied calmly. "We expected this kind of reception. The question now is whether they will listen to reason, or if we need to find other ways to demonstrate our value." Park Jun-ho completed his security sweep and joined them in the central area. "No active surveillance detected, but I assume they are monitoring us through the station's standard systems. Should we request a secure communication link to Earth?" Han Wu considered the question. His orders from Earth Command had been clear, but flexible. Secure the best possible trade agreement through diplomatic means, but be prepared for other options if negotiations failed. The phrase, "other options," carried weight that only a few people fully understood. "Not yet," he decided. "Let us see what tomorrow brings. Perhaps the Council will surprise us with their reasonableness." Kim Nari looked skeptical but nodded. "I'll prepare multiple presentation versions depending on how much time they actually give us. Should I also draft contingency messages?" "Yes. Cover all possible outcomes." Han Wu moved to the small window that looked out over the station's central hub. Thousands of beings moved through the area below, going about their daily business. Most had probably never heard of Earth or cared about human concerns. That might change very soon depending on how the next few days unfolded. Han Wu had spent years learning to be a diplomat, but some lessons from his earlier career never faded. The most important one was that sometimes the best way to earn respect was to demonstrate exactly why that respect was deserved. Tomorrow would reveal whether the Galactic Council was ready to treat humanity as equals or if they needed a different kind of education entirely. The Council chambers occupied the center of Nexus Station with a dome that reached high above the main floor. Hundreds of seats arranged in concentric circles allowed representatives from across the galaxy to observe proceedings. The architecture was designed to intimidate with its massive scale and the way sound echoed from every surface. Han Wu entered through the designated entrance for petitioning species. Kim Nari walked to his left, carrying the presentation materials, while Park Juno maintained a discreet distance behind them. The human delegation appeared small and insignificant compared to the alien representatives already assembled in their seats. Chairman Veltar of the Veltak sat on the elevated central platform. His ceremonial armor gleamed under the chamber. Lights and his multifaceted eyes tracked the human party as they approached the speaking area. To his right sat Morvani Council member Yexnara, whose energy form flickered between different colors. On the left, General Thokmar of the Krex filled a reinforced chair with his massive reptilian bulk. Lesser council members occupied the surrounding areas, but Han Wu focused on the three primary leaders. These beings held the real power in Galactic. Politics and their decisions would determine humanity's future relationship with the wider galaxy. "Approach the speaking platform," Veltar announced in a voice that carried clearly through the chamber. "State your species designation and the nature of your petition." Han Wu stepped forward and bowed according to diplomatic protocol. "Honorable Council members, I am Ambassador Han Wu, representing Earth and the human colonial territories. We come seeking expanded trade agreements and technology-sharing arrangements that will benefit all parties involved." A ripple of chittering came from the Veltak delegation, while several Krex representatives growled low in their throats. The reaction was not promising, but Han Wu continued with his prepared presentation. Human industrial capacity has grown significantly over the past decade. Our mining operations have increased output of rare minerals by 40%, while our manufacturing centers can produce goods at competitive rates. In exchange for access to advanced medical and agricultural technologies, we offer preferential trading status and exclusive mining rights in 12-star systems. 12 systems, Yexnara said with what sounded like amusement. How generous of such a small species to offer what they cannot effectively defend. Han Wu maintained his diplomatic composure despite the insult. Human defense capabilities have proven adequate against pirate incursions, and we continue to strengthen our security forces. We believe mutual cooperation serves everyone's interests better than confrontation. General Thokmar leaned forward in his chair, which creaked under his weight. You speak of defense, but humans have been involved in 3 separate conflicts in the past 5 years. Your species seems unusually aggressive for such weak creatures. Those conflicts involved protecting civilian populations from unlawful attacks, Han Wu replied calmly. Human forces responded with appropriate measures to ensure the safety of innocent beings. Appropriate measures, Veltar repeated with his mandibles clicking. According to our intelligence reports, human military units completely destroyed enemy forces in each engagement, leaving no survivors for questioning or negotiation. Does this sound like the behavior of a peaceful species? The chamber fell silent as council members waited for Han Wu's response. Kim Nari shifted slightly behind him while Park Junho's hand moved closer to his sidearm. The diplomatic situation was deteriorating rapidly, but Han Wu continued to project calm confidence. Human forces acted within accepted military doctrine to neutralize threats against civilian populations. We take the protection of innocent life very seriously and will respond accordingly when such protections are needed. Threats, Thokmar said with a rumbling laugh. Perhaps the Council should consider what threats humanity itself might pose to galactic stability. A species that claims peace while practicing such efficient violence requires careful monitoring. Several Council members voiced agreement with the Krex general. Han Wu realized the negotiation had shifted from trade discussions to something much more dangerous. The aliens were not interested in fair agreements, but were instead looking for ways to control or eliminate what they saw as a potential threat. The human position is clear, he said formally. We seek mutually beneficial relationships based on respect and cooperation. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our current colonial borders and no desire for conflict with any council member. Species? Veltar stood from his chair and his tall form cast a shadow over the speaking platform. The council has reviewed human activities extensively. Your species displays concerning patterns of rapid expansion and military development. These behaviors suggest future problems that require immediate attention. What kind of attention? Han Wu asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Restrictions on human military development, monitoring stations in all human territories, and council oversight of all major political decisions, Yexanara replied with energy crackling around her form. In exchange, humanity will receive limited trading privileges and continued permission to exist within council space. The terms amounted to complete subjugation disguised as diplomatic agreement. Han Wu felt familiar anger building in his chest, but forced it down through years of diplomatic training. Those terms are unacceptable. Earth requests time to consider alternative arrangements. Time is not available, Veltar declared. The Council has made its decision regarding humanity's future role in galactic civilization. You will accept these terms immediately or face the consequences of defying Council authority. Park Junho stepped closer to Han Wu as tension filled the chamber. Several Council security forces moved into position around the exits, while others took positions near the speaking platform. Kim Nari clutched her datapad tightly and looked to Han Wu for guidance. The human delegation requests safe passage to consider these terms with our government, Han Wu said formally. We invoke diplomatic immunity under galactic law. General Thokmar rose from his chair with armor plates scraping against each other. Diplomatic immunity requires recognition of legitimate authority. The Council no longer recognizes human governmental legitimacy pending compliance with our terms. The legal maneuvering was a thin disguise for what amounted to a trap. Han Wu realized the aliens had planned this confrontation from the beginning. The trade negotiations had been a pretense to lure human representatives into a position where they could be controlled or eliminated. This is unacceptable, Kim Nari said, stepping forward. International law clearly states that diplomatic personnel must be allowed safe passage regardless of political disputes. Human law is irrelevant here, Veltar replied dismissively. Council authority supersedes all lesser legal frameworks. You will comply with our terms or be detained pending further deliberation. Park Junho moved protectively in front of both Han Wu and Kim Nari. Sir, we should leave immediately. This situation has moved beyond diplomatic resolution. Thokmar gestured to his security forces. Escort the human delegation to detention facilities. They will remain there until they accept council terms or until we decide their final disposition. Krex warriors approached with plasma weapons drawn. Their reptilian faces showed anticipation of violence, while their clawed hands gripped energy rifles designed to stop much larger opponents than humans. Han Wu counted 6 immediate threats with more moving to surround them. General, this action violates every principle of diplomatic conduct, Han Wu said with steel entering his voice for the first time. History will judge the Council poorly for such behavior. History is written by those who survive to tell it, Thokmar replied with a predatory grin, showing rows of sharp teeth. Park Junho drew his sidearm as the first Krex warrior reached for him. Stay back. We are protected under diplomatic immunity. The Krex warrior struck with the butt of his plasma rifle, catching Park Junho across the side of his head. The security attaché staggered but remained standing and raised his weapon. The alien fired his plasma rifle at point-blank range. The energy burst caught Park Junho's center mass, and his body disintegrated in a flash of superheated light. Kim Nari screamed and stumbled backward, while Han Wu watched his protector and friend die in an instant. The smell of ozone and burned flesh filled the air around the speaking platform. Junho! Kim Nari cried out as she tried to reach where he had been standing. A second Krex warrior grabbed her arm, and plasma energy sparked around his weapon. The blast caught her in the shoulder, spinning her around and sending her crashing to the floor. Her datapad scattered across the platform as she clutched her wounded arm. Han Wu stared at the scene with something cold settling in his chest. The diplomatic mask he had worn for years began to crack as older instincts awakened. Around the chamber, council members watched with satisfaction as their security forces handled the troublesome humans. Your turn, Ambassador, Thokmar said with obvious pleasure. Perhaps you will be more cooperative than your companions. The general's personal weapon was larger than the standard rifles his soldiers carried. The plasma array glowed with deadly energy as he aimed at Han Wu's chest. Around the chamber, other aliens leaned forward to watch the execution of the human diplomat. Medical drones hummed quietly as they scanned Han Wu's motionless body in the station's automated medical bay. The machines had been programmed to examine all casualties from the council chambers as part of standard procedure. Their sensors detected massive cellular damage consistent with plasma weapon trauma, but something else caught their attention. Deep within Han Wu's bloodstream, microscopic machines worked with purpose that defied the medical bay's understanding. The nanobots moved through damaged tissue, repairing cellular structures and rebuilding connections that should have been beyond recovery. Neural pathways that had been severed began forming new links, while bone and muscle tissue regenerated at impossible speeds. The lead medical drone transmitted its findings to Station Security Chief Yaxton, whose energy form flickered with confusion as he reviewed the data. According to every medical database, the human should have been dead within seconds of the plasma impact. Instead, his vital signs were slowly returning to normal ranges. "Run the scan again," Yaxton ordered through the station's communication system. "There must be some equipment malfunction." The second scan produced identical results. Han Wu's cellular structure was not only repairing itself, but was showing enhanced capabilities beyond normal human parameters. Bone density was increasing, while muscle fibers developed additional strength layers. His nervous system was forming new connections that would improve reaction times and sensory processing. In the medical bay, Kim Nari lay on an adjacent table, while drones worked to repair her shoulder wound. The plasma burn was serious, but not life-threatening with proper medical attention. She had remained conscious throughout the treatment and watched the readings from Han Wu's scanner with growing amazement. "Impossible," she whispered in Korean as she saw his heart rate stabilize. "It cannot be possible." One of the medical drones approached her bed. "The human female is showing signs of distress. Do you require sedation?" "No," Kim Nari replied in standard Galactic. "I need to speak with my colleague when he awakens. The other human subject is deceased, according to our initial assessment. However, our sensors are detecting anomalous readings that we cannot explain." Kim Nari closed her eyes and tried to process what she was seeing. During their 3 years working together, Han Wu had never mentioned any kind of medical enhancement or artificial augmentation. His diplomatic file listed him as a former military officer, but contained no details about special operations or experimental procedures. Security footage from the council chambers played on screens throughout the station as officials tried to understand what had happened. The recording clearly showed General Thokmar firing his plasma weapon at the human ambassador. The blast should have been instantly fatal, but medical scanners were reporting impossible recovery signs. Yaxton materialized in the medical bay as a crackling energy form, roughly humanoid in shape. His species had transcended physical bodies millennia ago, but still maintained individual consciousness that could interact with solid matter when necessary. "Explain these readings," he demanded of the medical drones. "How is the human subject still showing life signs?" "Unknown. Our analysis indicates the presence of advanced nanotechnology integrated with biological systems. The technology appears to be self-repairing and adaptive. We have no records of such capabilities in human medical files." The energy being flickered, with what might have been concern. "Could this represent some kind of weapon or military enhancement?" "Insufficient data for tactical assessment. However, the integration level suggests long-term installation rather than recent modification. The nanobots appear to have remained dormant until activated by severe trauma." Kim Nari listened to the conversation with growing understanding. Pieces of Han Wu's background began fitting together in ways that painted a very different picture than his diplomatic persona. His perfect calm under pressure, the way he analyzed potential threats, and his occasional moments of intense focus when discussing security matters. "Yongcheon," she whispered so quietly only she could hear. The word triggered memories of news reports from 20 years ago. The Yongcheon Rebellion had been a terrorist uprising that threatened to destabilize Earth's colonial expansion. Military forces had struggled to contain the violence until a special operations unit was deployed. Within 72 hours, the entire rebel organization had been eliminated with surgical precision that shocked military analysts. The operations commander had been listed only as Colonel Han of the Iron Ghost Unit. No photographs or detailed records had ever been released due to security classifications. The man had become legend among military circles, but had vanished from public record after the mission's completion. Han Wu's breathing deepened as his enhanced physiology completed its restoration process. His eyes opened and focused immediately. on the ceiling above, without the confusion typically associated with severe trauma recovery. When he turned his head to look around the medical bay, his movements were controlled and purposeful. "Nari," he said quietly in Korean. "Are you badly injured?" "Shoulder wound, but I will recover," she replied in the same language. "Sir, what is happening to you?" Han Wu sat up on the medical table despite protests from the monitoring drones. His diplomatic robes had been burned away, revealing a chest covered in old scars that spoke of a violent past. The plasma wound had healed completely, leaving only unmarked skin where the energy blast had struck. "Something I hoped would never be necessary again," he answered while examining his restored body. "How long have I been unconscious?" "Approximately 4 hours. The station security forces are confused by your recovery. They do not understand how you survived General Thokmar's weapon." Han Wu's expression hardened as memories of the attack returned. Park Junho's death and Kim Nari's injury filled him with cold anger that he had not felt in 2 decades. The diplomatic mission had failed, but something else was beginning. "They killed Junho," he said with quiet intensity. "They attacked you under the protection of diplomatic immunity. The Council has chosen violence over negotiation." Yaxton's energy form moved closer to Han Wu's medical table. "Human, you will explain the nature of your enhancements immediately. Station security requires full disclosure of any military modifications or weapons systems." Han Wu looked at the Morvani security chief with eyes that seemed to see through him. "You want explanations after your council murdered my people?" "The council acted within their authority to maintain order. You will comply with security protocols or face additional detention measures." "Additional measures?" Han Wu repeated as he stood from the medical table. "What exactly do you think you can do to me now that your friends have already tried to kill me?" Security alarms began sounding throughout the medical bay as Han Wu's enhanced physiology registered as a potential threat to station sensors. His heart rate and brain activity showed patterns associated with extreme combat readiness, while his muscle tension indicated preparation for violence. "Security teams to Medical Bay 7, Yaxton transmitted through the station's communication system. "Potentially hostile human subject requiring immediate containment." Kim Nari struggled to sit up on her medical table. "Sir, perhaps we should try to negotiate our release through proper channels." Han Wu turned to her with an expression she had never seen before. The calm diplomat was gone, replaced by something that made her remember why humanity had earned respect through fear rather than friendship. "Nari, the time for negotiation ended when they murdered Junho. Send a message to Earth Command using emergency protocols. Tell them the wolf has awakened." "The wolf?" "They will understand. Use the diplomatic communication array and transmit on frequency 77 Alpha. Include today's date and the phrase Iron Ghost activation." Understanding dawned in Kim Nari's eyes as she realized exactly who she had been working with for 3 years. The legendary Colonel Han had not retired from military service, but had been placed in diplomatic position as deep cover. The nanobots in his system were not medical enhancements, but military-grade augmentations designed for special operations. Security forces began arriving at the medical bay entrance, led by Krex warriors carrying heavy plasma weapons. Their reptilian faces showed confidence as they prepared to subdue a single wounded human. Behind them came Velthak soldiers with chitinous armor gleaming under the medical bay lights. Han Wu watched them approach with the patience of a predator selecting targets. 20 years of diplomatic service had not dulled the skills that made him humanity's most effective special operations officer. The nanobots in his system had restored and enhanced those capabilities beyond their original parameters. "Sir, there are too many," Kim Nari warned as she saw the security forces assembling. "No," Han Wu replied with quiet certainty. "There are exactly enough." The medical bay's lights suddenly went out as Han Wu moved into the darkness. His enhanced vision adapted instantly while the alien security forces stumbled in confusion. The last thing Yaxton's sensors detected was the sound of something moving through the darkness with deadly purpose. When the emergency lighting activated 30 seconds later, the security teams found empty medical tables and an open ventilation. Great. Han Wu had vanished into the station's infrastructure like a ghost returning to haunt his enemies. The hunt was about to begin. Nexus Station's ventilation system carried Han Wu through passages that normal beings could never navigate. His enhanced physiology allowed him to move silently through spaces barely large enough for human shoulders, while his augmented senses mapped the station's internal structure. The nanobots in his bloodstream provided detailed analysis of air currents and structural weak points. Security Chief Yaxton coordinated search efforts from the Central Command Center, while emergency alerts echoed through every corridor. All units maintained standard search patterns. The human cannot have moved far with his injuries. The Morvani's energy form flickered with frustration as his forces reported empty corridors and sealed access points. Standard tracking methods were useless against someone who moved through the station's infrastructure like a native predator. Security cameras showed nothing, while motion sensors detected only normal maintenance vibrations. In Section B-12, a Krex patrol moved cautiously through darkened corridors, searching for their missing prisoner. Their reptilian eyes provided excellent night vision, but they found only shadows and the sound of air moving through overhead vents. The patrol leader held his plasma rifle ready while scanning for heat signatures. Contact reports the human is unarmed and wounded, the leader communicated to his squad. Standard containment procedures should be sufficient. Above them, Han Wu moved through ventilation passages with the silence of someone who had spent years learning to be invisible. His enhanced hearing tracked the Krex voices, while his tactical training calculated approach vectors and elimination sequences. The aliens had made a critical error in assuming human capabilities based on diplomatic appearances. The first Krex warrior died without making a sound. Han Wu dropped from an overhead vent behind the patrol and struck with precision that snapped the alien's neck before he could raise his weapon. The plasma rifle fell silently into waiting hands as its owner collapsed. The second warrior turned at the sound of his companion hitting the floor, but found only empty corridor. A plasma blast emerged from the shadows, taking him center mass before he could call for help. The remaining squad members spun toward the weapon discharge and fired wildly into the darkness. Han Wu had already moved to a new position, using the station's structural supports to stay above their line of sight. The stolen plasma rifle provided superior firepower, while his enhanced reflexes allowed him to engage multiple targets simultaneously. Within minutes, the entire patrol lay motionless in the corridor. Section B-12 patrol, report your status. Yaxton's voice echoed from their communication devices. Han Wu picked up one of the communication units and spoke in perfect Krex dialect. Patrol continuing search pattern. No contact with target. The deception bought him additional time to move deeper into the station, while security forces wasted effort searching cleared areas. His military training provided dozens of ways to exploit alien overconfidence and poor tactical coordination. In the diplomatic quarters, 3 Velthak soldiers guarded Kim Nari as she recovered from her shoulder wound. Their chitinous armor provided excellent protection against most weapons, while their multifaceted eyes could track movement in multiple directions simultaneously. They considered themselves more than adequate to contain a wounded human female. Kim Nari worked carefully at the communication console, using diplomatic access codes to contact Earth Command. Her message would take several hours to reach human space, but its contents would trigger responses that would reshape galactic politics. The phrase Iron Ghost activation carried weight beyond simple military terminology. Human, you will cease transmission activities, the lead Velthak ordered while clicking his mandibles threateningly. Unauthorized communications violate detention. Protocols. My transmission is complete, Kim Nari replied while stepping away from the console. Earth Command has been notified of current circumstances. The alien's compound eyes tracked her movement, while his companions maintained positions near the entrance. They had been ordered to keep her alive for potential future negotiations, but their patience was wearing thin. Lights throughout the diplomatic section suddenly went dark as Han Wu accessed power distribution controls through the station's maintenance network. His enhanced night vision allowed perfect navigation, while the Velthak soldiers struggled with sudden blindness. The first alien died as a plasma bolt took him through his natural armor joints. The precision required to target such small, weak points in complete darkness demonstrated capabilities far beyond normal human parameters. His companions fired randomly into the room while trying to locate their attacker. Han Wu moved through the darkness like living death, striking with surgical precision that eliminated threats while protecting Kim Nari. Each shot found gaps in alien armor or vital systems, with accuracy that spoke of extensive combat experience. Within moments, the diplomatic quarters fell silent, except for the sound of bodies hitting the floor. Emergency lighting activated as backup systems engaged. Kim Nari found herself alone with Han Wu as he checked each fallen alien to ensure they posed no further threat. His movements were controlled and efficient, without wasted motion or emotion. "Sir, the message has been sent," she reported quietly. "Earth Command will receive full details of the Council's actions." Good. Now we need to reach the communications array to monitor their response. Earth will send a reply that the Council needs to receive. They moved through corridors that showed increasing signs of violence. Security forces had found evidence of Han Wu's passage, but had paid dearly for their pursuit. Alien bodies lay in patterns that spoke of tactical precision rather than random violence. Each engagement had been planned and executed with military efficiency. General Thokmar coordinated the search from the council chambers while growing increasingly frustrated with his force's inability to locate one human. His reptilian pride was wounded by the suggestion that his warriors could not handle an unarmed diplomat. "How many casualties?" he demanded from his communications officer. 17 confirmed dead across 4 separate engagements. The human appears to be using captured weapons and moving through areas not covered by security surveillance. The general's clawed hands scraped against his command chair as anger built in his massive frame. "Deploy heavy assault teams to all critical areas. Flood the corridors with enough firepower to kill anything that moves." The order revealed fundamental misunderstanding of the tactical situation. Han Wu was not hiding from superior forces, but was systematically eliminating them while moving toward specific objectives. Each engagement was planned to reduce alien capabilities while advancing his operational goals. In the station's central hub, civilian populations had begun evacuating as reports of violence spread through news networks. Ships departed from docking bays while frightened aliens sought safety away from the conflict zone. The reputation of human military capabilities was spreading faster than official announcements could control. Security cameras throughout the station began displaying images that would haunt alien nightmares for years to come. Corridors filled with dead Krex warriors who had been eliminated with precision that suggested supernatural abilities. Velthak soldiers found with their armor breached at points that should have been impossible to target. Han Wu appeared on recordings, like a ghost moving through alien forces with weapons that seemed to fire themselves. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to engage multiple targets faster than their nervous systems could process threats. The nanobots in his bloodstream provided tactical analysis that turned every engagement into a calculated execution. Chairman Veltar watched the security feeds with growing horror as his elite forces were systematically destroyed by a single human. The being they had dismissed as a primitive diplomat was demonstrating capabilities that challenged everything the Council believed about human limitations. "What is he?" the Velthak leader asked his advisors while staring at images of the carnage. "Unknown, sir. Our intelligence files contain no reference to such enhancement capabilities in human military forces." The truth was becoming clear to those with sufficient military experience to understand the implications. Humanity had not sent a simple diplomat to negotiate with the Council. They had sent their most dangerous weapon disguised as a peaceful representative. The lesson was being written in alien blood across the corridors of Nexus Station, while Earth's response fleet moved through hyperspace toward the confrontation. That would determine galactic history. Han Wu was no longer pretending to be a diplomat, and the aliens were learning exactly what that meant for their survival. The council chambers had become a fortress, as surviving alien leaders barricaded themselves behind emergency barriers and automated defense systems. Chairman Veltar's mandibles clicked nervously as he monitored security feeds showing empty corridors filled with the bodies of his finest warriors. The human diplomat had become something beyond their understanding. General Thokmar paced within the protective circle, while his remaining forces took defensive positions around the chamber entrances. His massive reptilian frame showed signs of stress as reports continued arriving of failed attempts to locate and eliminate their target. 43 confirmed casualties, his communications officer reported with a tremor in his voice. All security patrols in sections C through F have gone silent. The human has captured significant quantities of military hardware. How is this possible? Veltar demanded while his compound eyes tracked every shadow in the chamber. Our intelligence reports described humans as physically weak with limited technological capabilities. Yaxton's energy form flickered with patterns that indicated extreme agitation. The nanobots in the human system represent technology decades beyond our current capabilities. His enhancement level suggests military applications we never suspected existed. Outside the chamber, Han Wu moved through access tunnels that brought him closer to his final objectives. Kim Nari followed behind him carrying captured communication, equipment that maintained contact with Earth Command. Her shoulder wound had been treated with medical supplies taken from security stations along their route. Sir Earth Fleet reports arrival in 12 hours, she informed him quietly. Admiral Lee Min-ho commands 200 ships including the dreadnought Incheon's Fury. Han Wu nodded while studying structural blueprints displayed on a portable scanner. The Council chambers have multiple access points, but their automated defenses will make direct assault difficult. We need to disable their security grid first. His enhanced vision allowed him to see through ventilation grates into the chamber where alien leaders cowered behind their barriers. The beings who had ordered his execution now feared for their own lives as they realized the magnitude of their mistake. The communications array is our primary objective, he continued while plotting approach routes. Earth Command needs to broadcast their response across all galactic frequencies. Every species in Council space must understand what happens when you attack human diplomats. They reached the central communication hub through maintenance passages that bypassed most security measures. The facility contained quantum transmission equipment capable of reaching across the entire galaxy within hours. Han Wu began activating Earth Command's prepared message while Kim Nari monitored for security responses. The first transmission went out on all diplomatic frequencies in dozens of languages. Earth's response was formal but carried undertones that chilled alien receivers across known space. Human colonies were mobilizing their defense forces while trade agreements were being suspended pending Council explanations. "This is Admiral Lee Min-ho of the Earth Defense Force," the recorded message began. "An attack has been made on our diplomatic mission in violation of all galactic laws. Ambassador Han Wu was murdered along with his security team while operating under diplomatic immunity." The message continued with details of the Council's ultimatum and subsequent violence, while making clear that humanity considered this an act of war. Trade routes were being closed while human merchant vessels returned to Earth space. The economic implications would be felt across dozens of star systems within days. Furthermore, Admiral Lee's voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. Ambassador Han Wu was not simply a diplomatic representative. Colonel Han Wu of Special Operations Command has been activated to full military authority. All Council forces on Nexus Station are hereby designated as hostile combatants. The transmission revealed Han Wu's true identity to alien intelligence services, who had never suspected a legendary special operations officer was operating under diplomatic cover. Files that had been classified for 20 years were suddenly being broadcast across galactic communication networks. The Yongcheon Rebellion had been ended by surgical strikes that eliminated an entire terrorist organization without collateral damage. Military analysts had studied the operation for years, trying to understand how one man had achieved what entire armies had failed to accomplish. Now they knew that same individual was loose on Nexus Station. In the Council chambers, alien leaders listened to Earth's message with growing horror. The being they had tried to execute was not only alive, but had been systematically destroying their forces while demonstrating capabilities that redefined human military potential. "We must negotiate immediate ceasefire," Yexnara announced, while her energy form shifted through colors indicating extreme stress. "This situation has moved beyond our control." "Negotiate with what?" Thokmar snarled while hefting his personal plasma cannon. "He has killed dozens of our finest warriors and shows no signs of stopping. The human wants blood, not talk." Veltar's compound eyes tracked movement in the chamber's upper levels where shadows seemed to shift independently. "Perhaps we should consider the Council's original assessment of humanity was incomplete." The emergency barriers around their position suddenly began retracting as Han Wu activated override codes accessed through the communication array. His enhanced hacking capabilities had penetrated security systems that aliens considered impregnable. Within moments, the Council leaders found themselves exposed in the center of their own chamber. Han Wu emerged from concealment, carrying an array of captured weapons while moving with predatory grace that made seasoned warriors step backward. His diplomatic robes had been replaced with improvised tactical gear that emphasized his military bearing. "Honored council members," he said with voice carrying across the chamber, "I believe we have unfinished business regarding diplomatic immunity." General Thokmar raised his plasma cannon, but found himself staring down the barrel of a Krex heavy rifle that should have been impossible for humans to operate effectively. The weapon's targeting system was locked onto his head with electronic precision. "You murdered my security officer and wounded my aide under the protection of diplomatic immunity," Hanwoo continued while additional weapons tracked other council members. "You offered terms that amounted to enslaving my species. You fired on an unarmed ambassador during peace negotiations." "We were acting to protect galactic stability," Veltar protested while his mandibles clicked frantically. "Human expansion patterns suggested future conflicts." "Human expansion," Hanwoo repeated with cold amusement. "You were afraid of 50 colonial worlds while sitting on thousands of systems. Your fear has cost you everything?" The first hyperspace distortions appeared on station sensors as Earth's response fleet began emerging from faster-than-light travel. 200 warships materialized in perfect formation around Nexus Station, while the massive dreadnought Incheon's Fury took position directly above the diplomatic section. "This is Admiral Lee Minho to Nexus Station Control," the communication broadcast across all frequencies. "You are ordered to surrender all Council military forces and release human diplomatic personnel immediately." Additional ships continued, arriving as Earth's colonial defense forces converged on the station. The vessels carried experimental weapons that had been developed in secret, while aliens assumed human technology remained primitive. Energy signatures detected by station sensors suggested firepower levels that challenged Council supremacy. Hanwoo watched the alien leaders process the implications of their situation while keeping his weapons trained on their positions. "The Council has two choices: surrender and face trial for violations of diplomatic immunity, or resist and face the consequences of war with humanity. What guarantee do we have of fair treatment?" Yexnara asked, while her energy patterns showed resignation. "The same guarantee you gave my people," Hanwoo replied. "None." Chairman Veltar's compound eyes focused on the weapons pointed at his delegation while considering options that grew fewer with each passing moment. The human fleet outside could destroy the station, while the enhanced soldier before them had already proven capable of eliminating their best fighters. "The Council formally surrenders to human military authority," he announced with defeat clear in his voice. "We request consideration for civilian populations aboard the station." Hanwoo nodded once while maintaining his weapon positions. "Civilian populations will be protected according to human military law. Council military forces will be disarmed and detained pending formal proceedings." Kim Nari emerged from the communications center carrying documentation that would reshape galactic politics for generations. Earth's response had included termination of all existing treaties, along with demands for reparations and territorial concessions. "Sir Admiral Lee reports that Earth withdraws from all Council agreements effective immediately," she announced while reading from official communications. "Human space is declared closed to Council vessels pending resolution of this conflict." The transformation was complete. In less than 24 hours, humanity had shifted from junior partner seeking trade agreements to galactic power demanding respect through force.